Hello there, you amazing people out there. Welcome to the Amazing Action Comics podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with Phil Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It feels like deja vu.
All over again.
All over again. All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Amazing Action Comics podcast. This is an indie comic review. This is episode 104. And we're kind of coming off of a high because we actually just did a previous podcast, which you guys are going to get on Monday with a creator. Yes, a future.
We did it in the past, but you'll see it in the future.
Oh, man, that's a movie right there. We should call it Back to the Future. Yes, Michael Gonzalez from Rainy Road Media was on to promote his new creation, which looks pretty exciting. I mean, some of the art in there was just really fantastic.
It's a really good horror anthology. I really dug it, and we only read the preview. We haven't read the whole thing, but I was into it, man. I was really into what he was putting out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've reviewed them before. So we had the 6-8 book, which is, a horror book, and that's not my. I don't know why I read comics because I don't even have genres. I feel like I'm in one genre, but I read all these books. But I don't gravitate towards horror books. But it was actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did like that. I like that he mentioned he modeled it after 2000. Again, that's in your wheelhouse because you're a big fan of 2000 AD stuff. So that anthology format and that sort of grittiness, I think, is a good carryover. I like that he thought like that when he started this. Yeah.
There was a big grin on my face as he was saying it. And then I'm remembering that I had to pay a little over $30 for the 3 Judge Dredd magazines that came out. Because they don't come out in singles. They're like 3 issues in advance, and I'm like, holy crap.
Weekly in the UK, and then like a quarterly dump of them all in the US. It's crazy.
Yeah, wait till it turns to like half a year, and that'll be fun. Yes. All right, guys. So welcome to another indie comic review. We do have some comics for you. I know that we weren't here last week, and I think Phil has a story about why it didn't happen. So we're gonna listen to that first, and then we have a couple of books that we're gonna review from the previous week as well as this week too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, last week was sort of, I think, an adjustment, on both our parts. Whoa. All right. There we go. That's all right.
That's the truth.
That was actually Batman and Superman. They both fell. And not for
they
nothing.
were holding hands.
They were holding hands. And not for nothing, but Superman's leg did break off. But it was already broken off. So he was actually just supporting on that. So yeah, I think there was some adjustment last week as far as new schedule, the video thing, and all of that. And so, yeah, we had, as you said, we took a bye week last week, which is really funny because last week there was a fair amount of number ones, which was really funny because we were really light on number ones the last few weeks, and this week too, to a degree. But what I wanted to kind of clarify was what happened the week before. And there's a great moment if you watch and listen in our last podcast from 2 weeks ago at about 25 minutes and 50 seconds, you hear this really loud, what sounds like thunder, like a rumbling of thunder. And your face is priceless. You got to see Angel's face on that because he was definitely shocked by it and a little surprised, as I was, but I chalked it up to the street that I live, which just has a lot of rumbling trucks on it. So I just thought nothing of it. And then while I was talking, I noticed a whole bunch of police lights outside of my front door. So I was very distracted and sort of losing my focus and keying on that. And the second the police cars pulled away, that's when my screen froze. And as Angel brilliantly said, I was lost in time. And so that was it. That was so I had to figure out what was going on, and I went outside. It was like a ghost house. There's no one there except the aftermath of what happened. And so I had to kind of CSI this, right? There was broken glass in the street, and there was wires hanging all over my yard and the yard of the guy across the street. So apparently the big bang that we heard was I think a truck hit a car in front of my house, pulled over, which is the right thing to do. And the police were there, and they did their whole deal, and they did their, investigation and whatever, insurance information, blah, 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 blah. And when the police pulled away, the truck, I didn't have clearance on the side of the road from our internet line, and he pulled the line out of the house, knocked out half the gutter like that. So that was also kind of hanging loose, and I had to reattach that afternoon. So yeah, so it's a really crazy thing that has never happened before, and knock on wood won't happen again, especially in the middle of a podcast. So I just kind of, for those that were left hanging with that, yeah, no, it was pretty crazy, but it was just a weird timing. So
it was probably divine intervention, because God knew you were just going to ramble
it
for
was going to
way
go
too
forever.
long
It was going to go
and
forever.
forever.
Once,
So
because again, once I went off script because I was paying attention to the lights outside, like I knew I was like, oh wait, this is gonna be bad. This
yeah.
is gonna go on for a really long time.
So whatever
So,
you were discussing, I had to give the cliff notes, and we were
and you did a
done in
great
like
job. You
20
covered everything.
seconds.
Yes, you did. It was
Yes.
great.
So God was like 20 seconds, 30 minutes, 20 seconds, 30 minutes, truck. Let's go for it. All right. So there goes why we went out a couple of weeks ago. And then, yeah, last week, there's some schedule changes and adjusting. So I think we're adjusted. So I think from this point forward, we should be okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be great. All right, cool. So we have a couple of books. We have titles from the week of March 22nd. We have one title that we both read. I think we both read both of these books. So let's have you start. So this is from the 22nd of March, and this is
Order and Outrage, a 4-issue miniseries from Dark Horse Comics. This is written by industry veteran Jim Starlin, art by almost industry veteran Rags Morales, colors by Haley R. Brown, lettering by Michael Heisler, and it is edited by Patrick Thorpe with assists by Anastasia Ferry. Now, this is, for those of you who don't know Jim Starlin, you should. This is the guy who created Thanos. This is the guy who created Adam Warlock, Infinity Gauntlet. This is the guy who also killed Jason Todd. So this guy has worked in, both with the big two. He is great at cosmic stories, but he's also really good at gritty street level stories. If you only know his Batman work from the Death in the Family, I urge you to read what his run for almost the year before that, because he was doing some really good street level crime Batman stuff, and I always love his writing. I think he's got a great voice. And again, yeah, he can walk those worlds from high concept sci-fi and cosmic to, like I said, really good street level stuff. And a lot of that combines too with another thing he did for DC that I encourage everybody to check out, called Cosmic Odyssey, with early Mike Mignola artwork. That is like a melding, because Batman's in there, but it is a Cosmic Odyssey. So that's a melding of both of those sensibilities. And that kind of brings us to Order and Outrage, because that's sort of the same thing. What you basically have is you have a very future tale, with a caste system structure, not unlike the Empire in Star Wars, or what we're seeing, I guess, if you're paying attention to what the New Republic has become in Star Wars. And there's a lot of sort of like a military hierarchy aspect, and a lot of time jumps in this. So this starts a lot of time jumps. So this kind of starts at a place, at a location, not here in a moment, not quite our now. That's a direct quote. Then it jumps to 100 years before. Then it jumps to a little bit after that and a little bit before that. So it really jumps around a lot. But I didn't find that very confusing at all, because each of the locales were each of the locations were distinct enough that you were able to find your place in time in each of these scene changes, which I thought was really good and really helpful. And again, you did also have that the setting caption as well. I thought Rags Morales' artwork in this was phenomenal. Really some just big, beautiful, epic, 2-page spreads, and then really well done quieter moments. I don't really know exactly what's going on. I know we are following a specific woman, who at some point does gain these sort of powers, but we are following her from her birth, her childhood, and then in her adulthood, living under this sort of empire-like order system. So I'm very intrigued. It's a 4 issue, so it's not a big commitment. My one grievance, I would say, is that it is one of those things that feels like it was a larger work intended to be an original graphic novel and then chopped up, because I do feel like, and this has happened for a few books, I do feel like those last couple pages are not designed cliffhangers. You have something that happens and you kind of have a sense of what's going on, but since the text that is involved is actually in an alien language, you really don't know what's going on. And then the way it ends, there's no to be continued or a little button at the end of the last page on the last panel. It just boom, it's just like 5 pages of ads at the back, no more story. So it really makes you feel like, when I initially read this, it really made me feel like there were missing pages. Was there a production error or something like that? So I think that this is something where I really did love the first issue, and I'm going to pick up each individual issue. I do feel like this is something that is going to be really epic and clear and engaging as one complete narrative.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head, because I got to that last page and then I went to turn the page after the ad to continue reading, and it was just 5 more pages of ad. And then I went back and I just, you know how you take the paper and you stick your 2 fingers to see if there's 2 pages stuck together? Yes. I kept doing that because, like you said, there was no to be continued. And it wasn't a cliffhanger. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was not a cliffhanger. Like, if the alien language was translated and we understood what was going on, because there wasn't any context to that. It's like, just, is he an alien? How does she read alien language?
Yeah. Well, she's holding something, which I'm guessing might be something helping her read that. I mean, the only thing you get to know is that a message was sent for somebody. She was not intended to see it.
Right.
But we don't know what that message was. And again, like, that's a fine ending, I feel. But I think just a to be continued, or maybe a thought bubble from her or something, to indicate, okay, we're at the end of the first chapter. Is my only grievance about this book. Otherwise, this thing is cool. It's cosmic. It's human, and it's intriguing. So
okay. So yes, so the art is good. I mean, I've met Rags a couple times. He's a nice guy. The art is pretty cool. It's one of the things that attracted me to the book. They could deal without the heavy car stock, so they could make it $3.99 instead of $4.99. But it is beautiful though. And the only other pet peeve I have, like jumping timelines, I don't mind, as long as I can ingest them properly. So this is what I'm talking about. At a location, not here. In a moment, not quite our now.
Yeah.
Then you go to the next page, 100 years later, from an unknown time.
Yes.
Above the planet Penetralia now. So it's 100 years from now. So we actually have a timeline.
Yeah.
So the first one didn't make any sense, because if it's now and it's 100 years from then it should be 100 years before then.
That's because it's a cosmic odyssey, Angel, and
okay.
It is a place that sits. I mean, I feel like whatever that incident is that we're coming into at the beginning is sitting outside of reality, almost. Possibly. Who knows?
You know what? That just makes my head want to explode. And then it goes to then and then before.
And then before.
So if it's then and before, is it then already before?
Well, part of it is, again, you're following her, so you could tell by her age. Like, you see when she's born, and that was then, or no, you see her when she's a child, that was then.
Don't even
and
try
then
to
before
explain
is when she was born. I think I get the timeline, and again, I feel the scenes are different enough to help differentiate.
They are.
But
the timeline doesn't make sense if then and before are almost the same, because they're both in the past, right? That happened then. This happened before.
Well,
did it happen before then?
Yeah. Well, 3 more issues to go, and we'll get in between then and before, and almost now, and not quite not quite are now.
Not quite then. Yeah, that was the only thing. If I didn't read the time captions, then I'm okay because I don't think we needed them.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, I got you saying.
I don't because the lady that we see in the very beginning, who's dead, is reincarnated later on.
Or well, she's revived 100 years from not quite our now.
All right, so Order and Outrage. Yes, if you want to have a good time with this book, definitely pick it up. Phil and I read 2 different stories out of the same book, so it's great. But I mean, it looks beautiful. The story actually, I think, is intriguing. Other than those little things that we pointed out.
See, I think you're right. I feel that adds to the mystery. So I'm looking for more of that connecting thread. I feel there's going to be more connecting threads there. I got the sense that we were following this girl at various points in her life. We see her later on, then at birth, and then
then before,
adult, and then as a kid, and and then as an adult again, and then on 5 pages of ads.
All right, wonderful. All right, Order and Outrage by Dark Horse Comics. If you want to have as much fun as we did trying to interpret this book, go for it.
Let us know what you think.
Let us know what you think. Yeah, see what timeline you fall under. Cool.
But,
all right,
don't tell us now. Tell us
don't tell us now. Yes, tell us before and then. All right, excellent. Next book is The Ambassadors, and this is from Image Comics, and it's from our boy Mark Millar. Millier? It depends on what language you're speaking. Written by Mark Millar. Artist and colorist is Frank Whiteley. Letters by Clem Robbins and assistant colors by Vincent M.G. Dagon. Cool. I mean, if you know Mark Millar, then this is a Mark Millar book for sure. I mean, I'm currently reading Nemesis Reloaded. If you've read the original, just as cool and badass and just as cringing as ever on that particular book. And, obviously his famous works like Kick-Ass that got adapted into a movie. Whoa, there goes another freaking independent movie thing that we got to do down the road.
Oh, yes.
For that. But here we're here to talk about The Ambassadors. So a really cool concept, and it's right on the front of the main cover. 8 billion people, 6 can have superpowers. Which 6 it's going to be? Who would you choose, kind of thing. So this is pretty much the backstory to the question that it's posing on the cover. If you don't know Frank Whiteley, dude, his art is so great. It's unique. It stands out. I mean, his most famous, work of art had to be what? All-Star Superman.
All-Star Superman is definitely, I think, his most known.
Yes.
But he did some Authority.
Yes.
He did New X-Men with Grant Morrison. I mean, he's been all over the place. He's such an amazing artist. This reminds me a lot of another thing he did with Grant Morrison, the 3-issue series We 3, as far as what can happen when technology, intended for good can go wrong. Or science intended for good can go wrong. I feel like that's sort of where we're going with this story, right?
Yes. So we have a couple of things that are going on in the issue, but basically it comes down to sort of this scientist who was framed by her husband to have her put in jail so that he could take over this project that was about creating superhumans or superhuman serum. And come to find out that he couldn't do it on his own, so he actually failed. And from prison, she was able to actually complete the project by downloading her consciousness into another being that is just like her. So I'm assuming that it's a clone of her. So she's downloading her consciousness as she's giving this, presentation to all of these people. And basically what she's going to do is that she's opening it up to the world, not selling it because her husband wanted to get rich off of this, sell it to the, the richest country or the highest, bidder in that respect. And she wanted the world to have it. So basically she's inherited these powers herself. We don't know what powers they are as of yet. We know that one of them is flying because she can fly. We know there's other, I think there's one like not telekinesis, but more like it would be technology. So she's able to like write and send emails just by thinking them and stuff like that. So that would be, specific to electronics and stuff like that. So I guess throughout the issues, I'm pretty sure it's a Mark Millar book, so it's probably going to be 6 issues or 4 issues. So we're going to get the entire story there. But we had some setups prior to that, but that's the main chunk of the story. So we get, this ape-like looking guy at the very beginning who has sort of these powers that escape from this facility, and we have this gentleman that finds him and talks him to come back. And we don't know. I don't think that's part of her organization. I think this is another rival organization, and this is going to come out later on. And then you had sort of like a middle story that's set up for what happened at the end with this whole plane, finding the secret location where this young lady is. I'm refusing to say her name because it's Korean and I don't want to butcher it. But thinking that the U.S. is going to be the first one to create superheroes was funny in the book because they're not. It's actually South Korea. And so she's got this formula and she's willing to give it to 6 deserving people. Doesn't matter if they're big, small, whatever their race, religion, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's 6 good people. And so I guess the U.S. government gets wind of this and they're like, you got to be kidding. And it kind of just ends there. And we're going to get to see what happens with that. I mean, there's a really big climax at the end with what happens to her body in prison and then this new body. I don't want to give away too much, but I enjoyed it. I mean, Mark Millar he goes by the beats of every single one of his stories. He has most of the time just an opening that has nothing to do with the current story that you're going to read, but it's going to make sense as the story unfolds completely. Then he gives you sort of like an example of how the story is going to be introed, and then gives you how that story follows into the actual main story. And pretty much all of his beats of the stories go that way. But what makes it really compelling is that those beats are there. It's just, what world are you in that he's creating now? Are you going to be intrigued? And bro, I was intrigued. I mean, Frank Quitely's art got me, and sort of like his beats that he set up for the next, story. I'm like, fuck, I want this book to come out. I want to read this book.
Yeah, it was really cool. I think some of the things I really loved the most were these very Mark Millarian concepts that he puts out there. So I love the opening scene in Mexico with the Scottish monkey boy. Breaking into the refresco, vending machine and just downing these colas, and then just lifting that truck like, in midair, like using the force almost. That bit was great. And then you kind of get a little bit more context on actually who he was and what happened to him later on, which is kind of sad, but again, it really adds to that world. I also really love the bit about the Department of Extra Normal Operations, or DENO, and their sort of briefing they're having, talking about how they faked creating superhumans in the past, and that they actually hired an actor to be like a Superman, and they made people believe that a Superman existed just by doing special effects and faking it. So, it to me, it was like, oh, that's kind of like the moon landing, the whole theory that Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing, for the government. And then there's that great line of like, oh, what happened to this actor that was playing this superhero? They're like, what happens to everybody in Black Ops, and they just move on. And then to find out that the monkey boy was part of something called Project Bonzo, which was, named after one of Reagan's movies. So it's just like all these little details that Miller puts in are just so good. And it just really does open up the world significantly. And it really does make you feel, like you're in that story and in that world. And Quitely's art is so cinematic and so detailed and so expressive that it just really pulled me right in. And this is really cool. And I really encourage people to check this book out rather than wait for the inevitable Netflix TV series, which will probably be very good as well. but definitely give this book a shot because it's really good.
Yeah. I mean, we gave an oversimplification because there's even more in there, but this is definitely worthwhile. A pick of the week for me. The Ambassadors from Image Comics. Pick it up. You definitely won't be disappointed. It's a really good, take on the superhero trope as well. I mean, we know there's so many superhero books out there. How do you make it unique and different? And this gives it just a little bit of a twist. It skews off just enough to make it really, really interesting. So yeah, I like it. Pick it up, guys. It's good stuff. All right, so those are the 2 books that we have for you this week. I know that last week or the week before, last week we were supposed to have sort of our indie comic movie review.
The indie movie review, which then we were going to push to today, which is really interesting that we kind of landed on that because tomorrow is the 30th anniversary of Brandon Lee's death. So we thought the timing of that was really good, but because we had to shuffle things around, we're moving this to next month. So in a few weeks, we'll do The Crow.
Yes. So April 27th.
Yeah, very excited to talk about both the original comic and the original movie, and I guess whatever developments are going on with this remake that just finished wrapping. So,
oh my gosh, I can't even believe you told me. I refuse. I don't think I'm going to watch it. I refuse to. I'm going to boycott it. Maybe I'll watch it with like this.
Really quick, if the most recent interview with the creator James O'Barr I saw still holds true, this is going to be a remake of the comic. The original comic. So it's sort of like a 300 style, right? They're using the comic as the storyboard for the movie. So we'll kind of discuss, I guess, some of the changes the original movie made. But this is going to, according to James O'Barr, at last I saw, and I don't know if that's what happened, but this was going to be a straightforward adaptation comic.
Get ready for a lot of poetry.
A lot of poetry, a lot of slicing wrists and covering them up with black electrical tape. And my favorite bit, a guy getting sliced off at the knees.
Yes, that'll be fun. All right, so check that out. That's going to come April 27th. So we got there. All right, guys, so we're getting to the very end of our podcast here. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you click subscribe to the podcast. We're going to try to be here every single week for you guys. So whether or not you have a creator coming on, we'll definitely have the reviews every week. If you are a creator and want to come on to the podcast to promote yourself and or your project, go to amazingactioncomics.com/podcast. Fill out the form. We'd love to have you on. Stay up to date on everything that we've got going on at Amazing Action Comics at amazingactioncomics.com. And as always, please support your local comic book shops by visiting them every Wednesday, which is New Comic Book Day. For all comics, Tuesdays is DC Day or whatever it is. Just go and visit, shop, support them, keep them around for a little while. Phil, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And if you really want to scratch that Crow itch before we cover the movie, we got Crow statues. We got a beautiful Mezco 112 collective Crow action figure that has all the fucking bells and whistles and even a base that's like little flame crow from the movie. I love it. It's really cool. And if the 6-inch scale is too big for your shelf, they even have like a little 3 3/4 inch one too. That's really cool. At The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, you can find these books that we talk about and so much more. So come on by and give us a visit.
All right, and if you can't visit, make sure you visit your local comic shop. And those Crow statues are pretty darn cool. All right, kiddies, until next time, please be amazing, stay amazing, and read something amazing.